fresh graduates list salaries as the top priority in their job hunts for the first time in 14 years in an annual survey on graduate sentiment. The latest poll from GTI Media found that more graduates are worried about the rising cost of living and the use of artificial intelligence in their chosen careers. Nasyrah, Rohim with more.
5 months after her last day in university, Christy Elijah is still hunting for a job.
I think my biggest concern right now is that I have a student loan to pay off. So I guess my salary has to be on par with the living cost as well to be able to afford the loans as well.
And she's not the only one. Almost 80% of more than 11,600 students and graduates surveyed are worried about surviving on a fresh graduate salary, given the higher cost of living.
What you can see here is a sort of rated expression of, graduates saying, hey, we're being upfront about the fact that, we have all these material concerns right now that we need to see addressed. And the way that we talk to employers about this is to say that, being able to sort of head off these anxieties upfront and sort of reassure, graduates or incoming junior staff, that yes, that we do see these concerns.
More than half of those surveyed are concerned that artificial intelligence may make them obsolete in their industries. The survey finds that employers with more stable career prospects, like in finance or in civil service, are becoming more popular. The Education Ministry ranked 3rd place, up from the 6th spot in the last year. Companies that offer flexible working arrangements and care for the welfare of staff are also making their way to the top of some job seekers list. Like Si Wen-Wei, who will soon start her career in the fintech industry.
So I think location, then the working arrangements, and as well as the company culture that I could feel through the interviews, whether or not they were a no-nonsense company or just something that would be more open to giving feedback and things like that.
DBS Bank is among the top 5 most popular companies that offer flexible working arrangements for staff and increased upskilling opportunities. Companies in hot sectors like engineering are seeing a boost. A-Star is the most popular employer among local students and graduates for the 3rd time in a row.
And for more analysis, I'm joined by Isaac Hee, Managing Director of GTI Media Singapore, and Shalynn Ler, General Manager of Ethos BeathChapman Singapore, and that's an Asia headhunter firm. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening. So, Isaac, let's start with you. Salary, the most important factor for local graduates when considering, potential employees, and that's the first time in a very long time that they've managed to, put that up in your survey. What were some of the other standouts to you and why?
Well, I think the biggest standout to us from this year's survey, and we've been doing this for about 14 years now. I think the biggest concern that we've seen this year is just an expression of just this generalized sense of anxiety going on amongst graduates in the marketplace right now. Nearly 69% of graduates this year believe that it will be tough to find a good job. And this is up from about 13.3% of the previous year, so quite a significant jump. Almost 80% of the graduates that we surveyed stated that they were very concerned about the cost of living in Singapore on a graduate salary. There was also another 53% of graduates who stated that they were very concerned about the adoption of artificial intelligence or AI and the impact it could have on their chosen career field. And yes, as you've mentioned, for the first time this year, graduates, are openly stating that, that the number one factor that gets them to sort of choose an employer is actually the salary and remuneration package.
Right.
And this is significant because historically, in over the years, as we've done the survey, graduates typically tend to sort of downplay its importance because they don't want to seem too demanding or too pushy, and also because they tend to sort of look at just more sort of longer term investments, such as can this job grant me good career development prospects? Right. Can I get mentorship under a good leader? But this is the first year that they're openly saying, no, it's salary straight up. this is important to me right now. And a good way to look at this, I think, is as a response to just a lot of the volatility that they're seeing in the market, that they're prioritizing more immediate gains.
Right, and the rising cost of living.
Yes.
So, Shalynn, you've been in this industry long enough to know that, there seems to be a shift. But is that being reflected, though? I mean, are you seeing graduates saying that it's tough to find good jobs?
Yeah, we definitely are seeing a little bit of a more difficult market this year. I think a lot of graduates that we've seen, for example, have feedback that in extreme cases, they would apply to hundreds of jobs and they only get like a handful or a couple of interviews arranged, right? And on the flip side, I think for every job that we are seeing advertised as well, and this is not just graduates, but I do think obviously with graduates you lack the actual experiences, so it gets a bit tougher, and every fresh grad jobs that we are seeing now have multiple job applicants applying to it, which is a hint that it's a very competitive market out there right now.
Okay, well, let's look at the AI adoption as well, because that's what the survey also mentioned. But, Shalynn, are you seeing that, graduates, they're concerned about the adoption of AI and its effects on their particular chosen field? Because you imagine that the young, they're very tech savvy, but, to hear that, they're actually worried about it.
Yeah, when I initially read about it, to be honest, it's quite surprising. But actually, when I sat down to think about it, and I recalled myself as a fresh grad, right, it can be a bit intimidating when everyone's saying, oh, you're young, you should be tech savvy. But the actual fact is, recall yourself as a graduate, right? You don't actually have the actual experience yet. A lot of what you learn is just theoretical. You may have done internships, you may know how it actually is supposed to work, but in a real life situation, in an actual sort of work setting, across different sectors, AI can mean very different things in each sector, right? I think without that actual sort of experience, it can be quite intimidating. So I think it's just a matter of the fear of the unknown, right? But I do think that as a whole, Singapore has done quite well to encourage people to adopt AI in their daily work. And I feel as with all skill sets, the more you practice, the more you do it, the less intimidating it will become. So hopefully, I think graduates will see it that way eventually too.
Yeah, learning on the job.
Yes, learning on the job.
Isaac, with less interest in tech careers, we're seeing that A-Star, Microsoft, Micron, they're among the top 10 choices of employers in the survey. What's explaining this? It seems to be like a bit of a contradiction here.
Well, it may seem that way at first glance, but I think there's sort of two big takeaways that we can sort of take away, that we can get out of this. So the first big takeaway is that graduates are actually a lot sharper and a lot more resourceful and on the ball as we may assume at first glance. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they're actually paying attention to a lot more is what are the fundamentals that all these different employers are showing. And so in the case of these three companies, employers of A-Star, Microsoft, and Micron, I think where they are right now is, they do have pretty strong fundamentals at the moment. A-Star has government backing and is embedded in multiple industries, across the field of STEM. And they do offer graduates, great opportunities to sort of embed themselves in all these industries as well. Microsoft is obviously powering still the large majority of the world's computers, and they have been investing very heavily in cloud computing infrastructure as well, as part of this big AI boom that we're seeing at the moment. And Micron has also been a sort of victor in this current cycle that we're seeing, because the demand for semiconductors has sort of shot up.
Right.
As more companies, see increased demand for for GPUs, graphic processing units, as we need more microchips and EVs, so all these factors have also sort of driven growth in this area.
Right.
So the first big takeaway, I think, is that yes, graduates are actually seeing all these market movements, and they are looking at companies, which do have these strong fundamentals. There's a declined interest in tech careers, yes, but not for all tech companies, just the ones which have shown to have not been doing as well, or have had major job cuts over the past year or so. And I think the second factor is there's also no denying that these three companies actually do a lot of work to engage student grassroots on a regular basis. They actually do a lot of work in terms of engaging students on campus, building relationships with them, just charting out possible career paths for them as well.
Right.
And so the other big lesson to take away is that in times like these where things are very uncertain and highly competitive, the sort of relationship building approach, with graduates also plays a very important role in inspiring graduate confidence or even early career talent confidence in your organization.
Right. Well, salary and remuneration, they're now the top criteria for employer choices. What has changed, that it is now the top criteria?
Very good question. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the segment, we've been doing the survey for for more than a decade now, and historically, what we've seen is that graduates, tend to sort of downplay the importance of salary a lot more because they don't want to seem too pushy. It's not that it's not important to them; it definitely is, but they just don't want to come off as like being too demanding. Mm-hmm. And there's also like thoughts on their end about prioritizing. Well, can this job give me good career development prospects? Can I get opportunities to be mentored by a good leader? Can I see this job as allowing me to springboard to a better career pathway, even if I have to take a sort of like slight cut in salary right now. But I think what's changed is looking out at the current market situation. And the sort of and just all of the buzz and the pessimism and just the overall competitiveness of it right now, graduates are just feeling very anxious about this, and there's a thought process of what is the point of looking at good career progression prospects if I can't even guarantee that I'll still be in the same job the next year? Who's to say there won't be another round of staffing cuts? Right. Who's to say there won't be talk of of having my current role automated out by AI? And so the focus is very much on, and plus as I said earlier, 80% of them are actually saying that yes, we're very concerned about the cost of living on a graduate salary right now. So when you combine all of these things together into a perfect storm, I think what you're just sort of seeing is a sort of tendency to say we need to prioritize immediate material gains right now. What I need is I just need to see that I can make it true right now instead of waiting for
that is why salary has become the top of the list, so to speak. So thank you so much for coming in and speaking with me this evening. I've been speaking with Isaac Hee, Managing Director of GTI Media Singapore, and Shalynn Ler, General Manager of Ethos BeathChapman Singapore.